No, I'm game. I'm totally game. Totally game.
So how do you do it?
I did it.
Oh, it's on.
I don't know. I wondered the same thing.
They walked upstairs, kids.
Good evening. Good evening. We're going to call this meeting of the school committee to order. There's a few items on our agenda. The first is administrative business. The second is an introduction of new staff, and then we'll get to public comment. So just to start with administrative business, our first agenda item, thanks guys. Our first agenda item is the calendar. There are a large number of meetings up there, and this is also available if anybody needs it emailed to them. We also have a consent agenda. We have two items on the consent agenda, an establishment of a scholarship and acceptance of funds from the Hoard Trust. So can I have a motion for the consent agenda? Ms. Stone, seconded. Dr. Jackson, all those in favor? All right, it's unanimous, right, Ms. Scotto? It's unanimous? Okay. So our second agenda item is the introduction of new staff. Dr. Connolly, thank you. Our acting interim superintendent, Dr. Joe Connolly, will introduce the new staff who have joined us since the last introduction of new staff, which was a few weeks ago, led by Dr. Schmuckler and Dr. Fisher-Mueller and Ms. Dunn. You have to press the button to get it green. There you go.
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure. Tonight, I'd like to first begin with Yesenia Castro, who is our Director, Office of Student Affairs. Okay. Yes, please. Yesenia Castro has been appointed as Director of Student Affairs for the Public Schools of Brookline. For the past year, Ms. Castro served as Director of Family Services at the Boston Youth Sanctuary. In that role, she was responsible for new student recruitment and placement, and in concert with the Transportation Department, she developed new policies and procedures for children and families. Prior to her most recent position, Ms. Castro was a Regional Program Director at Today's Students, Tomorrow's Teachers, TSTT program, where she mentored and trained high school students who were interested in becoming public school teachers. Ms. Castro has vast professional experience, including having served for nearly 8 years as Metco Program Director for the Reading Public Schools, and having been a social worker at Lucy Stone Elementary School in Dorchester, as well as our department, as well as for the Department of Social Services. It's my pleasure to present Yesenia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Sure, you can say a couple words if you'd like.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm transitioning into the new role as Director of Office of Student Affairs, and I'm just excited to be here, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
Welcome.
here.
Ms. Sherlovsky has a question.
No, it's not a question. It's actually a statement. I wanted to thank you for coming into a very difficult position in the summer when registration is at its peak, coming into August and September, and handling that quite well. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Our second special guest for tonight is Josh Howe, Vice Principal of the Baker School. Josh Howe has accepted the position of Vice Principal of the Baker School. Mr. Howe began his career at the Runkle School before moving to Grade 2 at the Baker School. He has served as a leader of the Baker Bullying Prevention Coordinating Committee and has been a member of the Baker School's Site Council. He has led professional development workshops and critical friends groups both at the school and at the district level. During the 2012-2013 school year, Josh completed his principal internship under Dr. Mary Brown at the Baker School. Mr. Howe earned his undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of Massachusetts. Please help me welcome Josh Howe.
Thank you, and welcome Brookline. I'm so happy you made it out for this occasion. I just want to say it's an honor to make this transition, take this role as an administrator. I've taught now for 16 years in Brookline. Brookline is a special place to me, and I'm glad that my next step I can continue my growth and my next step here where I started. So thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Our third special guest tonight is Jim Stoddard, interim principal of the Runkle School. Jim and I are old friends because of my years as the interim principal at the Runkle School. I got to work and get to know Jim very, very well. Jim Stoddard has accepted the position of interim principal of the Runkle School. Jim has held the position of vice principal at the Runkle School since 2008. Jim began his career in Brookline in 1998 at the Baker School, first as a math specialist for grades 1 and 2, helping to implement the Think Math curriculum, before moving to grade 7 and grade 8 math teacher. Prior to joining the public schools of Brookline, Jim taught math at the Fenn School in Concord and at St. Andrew's School in Barrington, Rhode Island. Mr. Stoddard is a master teacher and has worked with programmers in developing Tinkerplots. Jim earned a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Brown University, a Master's of Education in Middle School Education from Lesley University, and a Certificate of Advanced Graduate Study in Education and Leadership from Simmons College. Please help me welcome Jim Stoddard.
Hello. Good to see everybody here. It's a pleasure and an honor to be working in this wonderful town of Brookline with an absolutely phenomenal faculty and staff at the Runkle School, and incredibly devoted, dedicated parent body as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. It is my home away from home, and I'm just delighted to be able to serve in this capacity for the Runkle community. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final special guest is David Young, interim principal, vice principal of the Heath School. David Young has been appointed interim vice principal of the Heath School. Mr. Young has been an educator for 22 years, serving as a music teacher for grades K through 6, a choral director for grades 1 through 8, and an assistant principal and building principal in K-5 schools. Starting in the suburbs of Chicago, he has worked the last 15 years of his career in the towns of Sudbury and Wellesley, both as a teacher and administrator. David earned a Bachelor of Music Education from Northern Illinois University and a Master's of Music Education from the University of Hartford. Please welcome David Young.
Well, good evening. I don't know if there's anything left to be said, except that Heath is a wonderful place. Brookline is a fantastic, fantastic town to be in. And if you believe that the school district that you work and live in is only as strong as the community it stands on, then I think it's pretty safe to say that from this showing, you guys are in pretty good shape. So it's wonderful to be here, and thank you all very much for the warm welcome.
Good luck.
Good. Thank you. Thank you to all of our new administrators. We're so excited. There's some background. We're so excited to have you, and you're welcome to find a seat if you can, or you may have other obligations.
Thank you.
We have, we're going to get to public comment in 1 second. We do have a member of our school committee on the phone. Beth, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So Beth Jackson-Stram is a school committee member who has contacted us, and we've determined that due to geographic distance, she is unable to physically be here. There is a quorum of members in the room physically present. We're in a public room, public phone. All votes will be taken, will be by roll call vote. If there are technical difficulties, we will suspend it. And if there is an executive session, which we don't need, then we will make sure you're in a place by yourself. So Beth, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Committee members, can you hear Beth? Okay.
Yes.
Great. So we're going to move on to public comment. Normally, public comment is 15 minutes. Clearly, we have more than 15 minutes worth of people here. So we will extend that period for this. We'll stay within the 3-minute limit per person, just out of respect, so we can hear from as many people as possible, but we will extend that time period. And I think there's, Dr. Hine, do you want to say something at the beginning? Okay.
To start the public comment section of the session of the meeting, I'd like to start with a public statement regarding what the current situation is. Again, thank you all for being here tonight. As you know, in the public schools of Brookline, part of our mission is to support every student in developing the skills and knowledge to participate thoughtfully in a democracy. Also, we work to instill in every student the habits of mind and life strategies critical for success in meeting the intellectual, civic, and social demands of life in a diverse global environment. I remind everyone here of our mission and goals because I am proud of the students. You are actively participating in our democracy, and you are exhibiting the skills needed to participate in the civic life of your community. As I said before, you are engaged, articulate, passionate, and organized. We continue to be very impressed with our students. I and other members of the staff understand you value Mr. Chen's teaching in the classroom and the relationships he has built with you. We are not questioning what you believe about Mr. Chen. We hear you loudly, and you've made your point very, very loud and clear. We hope students and parents will understand 2 points about where we are in the process right now. Many people are under the impression that the disciplinary action being considered by Mr. Chen is a result of using inappropriate language with students. Please realize this is not entirely the case. There are a number of allegations that are being investigated. And second, while the public schools of Brookline values transparency in the input of our community, we take the privacy rights of our employees and students very seriously. We are required by the laws of Massachusetts not to release any information about individual employees related to their performance or personal conduct. We simply can't share with you or the members of the press any information about this matter. Mr. Chen is entitled to a certain procedural rights in connection with his employment. The public schools of Brookline have and continue to provide him with those rights. Mr. Chen has been afforded the opportunity to further review his status, which will be provided to him this week. I know this has been difficult for many students. Our thoughts are with you. Please realize we care deeply about your education and your future. Thank you. At this point in time, that is our public statement, and now the public comment section is open.
So we have a number of people who have signed up in advance for public comment, so we'll start with that list. I think there is is there a sign-up sheet also, Robin? Okay, so somewhere back there, there should be a sign-up sheet for any additional people who want to make public comment. Is it on the table? Okay, so if that could make its way through the front, that would be good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 people on this list, so we're going to start with this list. Okay. So here's the one thing that I would ask. We do want to hear from as many people as possible. I will ask that at the 2.5-minute mark, someone give a 30-second notice so people know where that is, and then at the 3-minute mark, hold up a 3-minute sign and just ask that people wrap up out of respect for everyone else who probably wants to speak. So if we can start, Mr. Sekar, sign up first. Okay.
Hi, I'm Giri. Everyone knows Maya by now. Thank you, school committee. Let me just go off message for just a second, because I have read the allegations against Mr. Chen in their entirety. And I think it's important to emphasize that Mr. Chen has not been accused of any conduct that is criminal, any conduct that is perverted, any conduct that is indecent. In fact, 2 of the incidents are swearing related. The others are personnel related. One of them relates to an incident involving our family, and the second involves another student in this room. We're his biggest fans. So I just want to make that point, because on the playgrounds of Driscoll, the parents that don't know, they wonder, there must be something else. There is nothing else. Okay. For all the adults in the room, just a question. Take a moment to think about your middle school experience. If you think you had a great experience, full of education and really great social relationships, please signify that with a round of applause. Now, I'll ask the kids to think about their experience with Mr. Chen. If you had a great experience educationally, socially with Mr. Chen, please signify with a round of applause. Okay, a letter from the Brookline parent community. Let me just read this. This is signed by over 80 parents, with more that have signed since they've come here. Date October 13th, 2015, addressed to the Brookline School Committee. We are writing to share our concerns about the process surrounding the notice of intent to dismiss Mr. Larry Chen, Driscoll 7th and 8th grade social studies teacher. We are disturbed by the notion that a departing superintendent with 3 days of employment remaining has been empowered by the school committee to make a decision that could significantly harm the Driscoll middle school experience. Dr. Lupini has offered no substantive reaction or response when he received heartfelt individual letters signed by over 170 parents and students beyond writing a general email saying that this was a personnel matter and thus could not be discussed. He did not acknowledge that parents and students had expressed significant concerns or make an attempt to address them. Dr. Lupini has failed to meet with any parents and or students to hear our concerns and our views of Mr. Chen, despite repeated requests to do so, including ignoring a second letter specifically requesting such a meeting signed by 80 parents. Dr. Lupini effected the termination upon the recommendation of Principal Cook, who did so knowing that she was going on maternity leave within days. Dr. Lupini and Principal Cook terminated one of 3 7th and 8th grade homeroom teachers, thus depleting 33% of the teaching leadership capacity in 2 grades. Dr. Lupini and Principal Cook acted with no backup plan. The students had a substitute teacher for 2 weeks and will have a new substitute teacher on Tuesday, October 13th. As both should be aware, the best teaching candidates are not available in November.
So we're at the 3-minute mark?
This is a statement from 90 parents.
Okay, about how much longer?
The minutes, just a minute.
Okay.
This is from 90 parents. It's not me right now, okay? As both should be aware, the best teaching candidates are not available in November. Dr. Lupini, given that he's leaving on Friday, will not have to live with the consequences of his decision. The school committee has the power to hire and fire superintendents. The school committee already has named an acting superintendent in place, Joe Connolly. Given that Mr. Connolly will be responsible for the follow-up to the resolution of the Larry Chen matter, he should immediately be vested with the exclusive authority to make what is clearly a very important decision that will have long-standing ramifications. Given the above, the undersigned respectfully make the following requests. 1, that the school committee declare that the appointment of Joe Connolly as acting interim superintendent vests him with the authority to make the final decision regarding Mr. Chen's appointment and divests Dr. Lupini of a role in the process. 2, that the new process will guarantee that parent and student voices and concerns will be included and fairly considered in any ultimate decision regarding Mr. Chen. Respectfully submitted by the undersigned parents. With the donation of time, I'd like Maya to have a minute to speak, if you don't mind.
Can we have a number of people signed up? Can
Yeah,
we put you?
I'd like Maya just to have a minute.
My time. I can use my time. Susan.
All right. So, all right, Maya, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Stitkoff. Hello, my name is Maya J. Sekar, and I'm an 8th grader of the Michael Driscoll School. Today, on Tuesday, October 13th, 2015, between 100 and 150 of us, students, parents, and families, all different, come together in support of one man, one purpose, Mr. Larry Y. Chen. We come bearing hope and a voice that will now be listened to and taken into account throughout our local democratic process. Mr. Larry Y. Chen is a man of extraordinary talent, wisdom, and charisma. His very essence sparks energy and inspires curiosity. However, his absence also inspires social unrest. Teaching for him is more than a job, more than a career. It is a gift, and more than that, it is his life's work. In times of need, he has lended his time, his heart, and a hand to all in need. Now, in spite of a crude comment here and there, in his darkest hour, can we not give him his job? We thank him for his effort and his integrity, his guidance, his compassion and his kindness, his patience, his courage, and the fact that he has made a difference in everyone in this room's lives. I, on behalf of We the People, would like to present several student groups that would like to mention the reasons why Mr. Larry Y. Chen should stay. Thank you.
So we do have people who've signed up. I would love to hear from folks, but can we at least get through the people who've signed up and then do this? Okay?
I don't think they care, Susan.
Okay. So, okay. So the next person who signed up is Dr. Chen. To seat. Okay. Ms.
I would first like to welcome...
One second. Ms. McCundon? Nancy? Yes, we're fine. Nancy? Vanessa? Seed. Okay. Ellen? Martha Whiting? Okay. Victoria Oven Cyan? Later. Okay. Irina? Okay. Donna? Okay. Okay. So
I'm in the same situation as her.
okay. Okay. So whoever the next person is.
Maybe you want to know just that the kids plan 20 kids speakers, 1 minute each.
Okay. So that.
don't worry.
Okay.
We'll have about 10
That's fine.
small groups or pairs. The speeches will be between 30 and 42 seconds long.
That's fine.
And first, I'd like to welcome up Lily Isaacoff and Thea Feld.
I'll be speaking first. In the microphone. Okay. Can you guys hear?
Yes, please. And the reason you have to speak into the microphone is because it's being televised, so please make sure it's in the microphone.
I'm Lily Isaacoff. Okay. I went to Driscoll for 9 years and had the pleasure of having Mr. Chen as my history teacher for 2 of them. I remember the first day of school being so scared to raise my hand in class and speak my opinion. I was so scared of being embarrassed. But Mr. Chen accepted all opinions and inspired me to be confident in class. He showed me that ideas matter, and there is no such thing as a stupid question. Because his assignments were so interesting and thought-provoking, it inspired me to go above and beyond and put so much effort into each assignment. I would stay after school with friends debating the topic he taught us that day. Every day I was eager to learn and grow as a person. I still carry these ideas forward in high school. I don't think if I didn't have him as a teacher, I would not be able to carry these forward, and I would not appreciate how incredible our high school teachers are in creating thought-provoking courses. It would be such a shame to let him go. Thank you. Hi, my name is Thea Feld, and Mr. Chen was my teacher for 2 years. So Mr. Chen, he wasn't one of those teachers that came to school because it was his job. He came because he really cared about our education and our futures. He literally spent all of his time, or at least most of his time, preparing for class the next week. He made these incredible slide PowerPoint presentations that we would have notes, that we'd take notes on the next day, and they were completely in-depth and way better than a textbook. Mr. Chen, his eagerness to teach, it translated to our eagerness to learn. He inspired us to want to learn. And obviously, everything he taught us has stuck with everyone else. Firing him would be a travesty.
Next up, I'd like to call Anna and Dean.
Yeah. Okay. If people, that's a great idea. If people could get ready, that would be helpful.
We have Donna and Wendy.
That works, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Donna and Wendy, can you just maybe queue up behind them?
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Dean. I am in 7th grade. and I am genderqueer and gay. And when I decided to start telling people, I was really nervous. And when I came into Mr. Chen's class and he started talking to me for the first time, I just knew that I could definitely trust him with who I am without being ridiculed or made fun of. Thinking of not having that rock that I could lean onto is something that I can't bear to think of. And that's the end of my thing.
Hi, my name is Anna, and
Can you just tell us your last name also?
it's Kagisi. It's Caggese.
Thank you so much.
I am actually new in the school, and I was not the biggest fan of history you could encounter. But since I entered Mr. Chen's class, I got inspired because I knew that I could get accepted and that I could relax in his class, and that I think that's how I think I'm not the only one that feels that way. And Mr. Chen, he has an amazing way to connect with each student of his class because he supports everybody who has trouble adapting to the school, and he also. He simply I think he inspires everybody, and I don't think it is fair to take that away from us.
Thank you.
Okay, and then after Donna and Wendy, we have Basia and Masha.
Hi, I'm Wendy Frankel.
And I'm Donna Eberlitz.
We wanted to bring forward the point of Mr. Chen's exemplary teaching style. I think that everyone in this room can agree that his teaching style was unlike any other teacher that we have. And
I just want to say that Mr. Chen's teaching style is the most creative thing I've ever experienced at Driscoll, to be honest. And I learned so much from every lesson. He puts so much work into every lesson, and you can tell by the way he's up at the front of the class talking to us while presenting a PowerPoint, or sitting in his chair at the back of the classroom reacting to a documentary he's showing us. I walk out of every lesson with Mr. Chen feeling inspired and having questions about history and being interested in history.
no one's ever not paying attention in his class. You couldn't because it's just so interesting that you need to pay attention. He manages to make history interesting that we never thought that would be interesting.
Sorry, that's me. That's okay.
And he goes above and beyond textbooks in his PowerPoint notes. He researches other things. He researches after school to look up more interesting facts for us to learn. And I think everybody loves his teaching style in that it's something that we've never encountered before.
I never liked history before Mr. Chen, and I want everyone else at Driscoll, everyone who's younger than me, to experience Mr. Chen's history class.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the lights are a little sensitive, so.
Girls, wait to start so you're not interrupted. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. Statements of Masha and Basia. We also have Dimitri and Camille.
My name is Masha Kazantsev. I had Mr. Chen as a teacher for 2 years. Devotion, it's something that he put into his classroom, into history every single day. You could see him before school and after school every day, staying until the janitor had to kick him out. He would just wait until students would come up to him and talk to him about his subject and what they found, interesting or what they could argue with. And he was devoted to his students. He would do so much for them. He helped people, he supported people. And in turn, I think this is why we're all here. We are devoted to him, to what he taught us. He taught us civil rights and that we should stand up to them and that we should voice our beliefs. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
I am Basia Klein, and along those same lines, he is always there. I'm sure almost all of you can attest to this, at like as long as he can be, working on grading and new curriculum, working out what worked last time, what might work better next time. Even though his curriculum is good, that's not enough. He's always striving to be better, no matter how good he already is. And he really, really carries that down to his students, where he's not just teaching us history, he's teaching us the sense of putting everything we can into something and not just stopping at, oh, it's okay, stopping at this, not stopping, going above and beyond always. Like like Thea mentioned, he made these PowerPoints all just from his own mind and learnings. He didn't just take out a textbook and tell us, read this. He was an active part of our learning, and without him, I don't think any of us would have gotten as good of an education in history and in how to do things well.
After Dimitri and Camille, we have Zoe and Leah.
I'm Dimitri Papoulis. I had Mr. Chen for 2 years at the Driscoll School. And for the first 4 months of our education in 7th grade, we really focused on historical empathy with him, putting ourselves in others' shoes and trying to decide if we would act the same way if we were in someone else's situation. He inspired countless students. Every single person here has been inspired by him. I mean, he changed my life completely on my points, on my views of education, and it would be it would be the worst decision, that you guys could make to get rid of him. I mean, he is Driscoll, and he has this entire community on his back, and we cannot lose him, okay? Come on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri.
Hi, my name is Camille Cook, and I had Mr. Chen for 7th grade. So normally you go to class, you're given a textbook to take notes on or a packet or something. But then I got in Mr. Chen's class, and I discovered that I could make a video for assignments. And I really like making films. It's a passion for me. I'm obsessed. So it was great to make films for his class. And I really never thought I would say this, but I actually really enjoyed doing his homework for the class. So he was just really creative, and it would be a shame if you had to let him go.
Thank you, Camille.
Hi, I'm Zoe Vidalewski.
And I'm Leah Glazer.
So first of all, Mr. Chen isn't just a teacher. He is our mentor, inspirer, and pathway into the large and complicated world of history. Mr. Chen didn't just teach us history. He went above and beyond and gave us ability and resources to become true historians.
Mr. Chen never left a question unanswered. He even worked overtime to give us the most detailed answer possible.
Speaking of details, Mr. Chen's custom-made note-taking slides provided more detail than our textbooks ever could and never felt short of extraordinary. They went above and beyond on every single event and never felt like work. They never felt dry details with which Mr. Chen had ample of.
Not to mention his Ivy League education, which was evident every day. Not just in his notes, but in his ability to answer any questions we had. Every day he extended his knowledge onto us. He even read 2 books a week, which seems like Mr. Chen was brimming with details and facts.
It's more than clear now how Mr. Chen is prepared for the job on an educational and factual level.
There is no way to describe Mr. Chen's effects on our education and our lives. It's clear from where I stand that students want him back, and at the end of the day, the students are the ones being affected by this decision.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you value not only our opinions, but the mutual opinion of over 100 plus students, and reinstate Mr. Chen.
Hi, my name is Grace Sokolow. This is my 11th year at the Driscoll School, and I'm an 8th grader. So as I am nearing my graduation, I feel that it would be a shame to complete my final year without this amazing teacher. Having our history teacher removed just when we were settling into the school year has really disrupted our learning. While we have had substitutes in his absence, each one has a different teaching style that takes getting used to, and each one needs a day or two to adjust and gauge where we are in the curriculum. This prevents us from being able to solely focus on the subject matter and waste valuable learning time. Also, the longer it takes for this issue to be resolved, the more protests are likely to take place in support of Mr. Chen, resulting in us missing even more class time.
Hello, my name is Victoria Teravanisan. 7th grade, this was my history class. We came into class, we were given a textbook reading, we took notes on it, and what we didn't finish, we had to finish for homework. This is why I dreaded history. In 8th grade, it was Mr. Chen's time to come. So, the first day, Mr. Chen came in and he talked to us about how important history was. And it's true. History is the most important thing in my life right now. It's the only class I like, and I knew from the time that Mr. Chen taught this class to me in 8th grade that I would love history. Now, Dr. Lupini, with his interview in the tab, said, "Personal issues are confidential and we're not in the habit of discussing them publicly," he said. "I know that's frustrating for people, but they're all carefully considered to make sure we're acting in the best interest of the students. So here we are, the students, telling you exactly what is in our best interest. So please take this into account."
Hi, so I'm Maribel Casey, and when I first came to Driscoll as a new student in 7th grade, I've diagnosed with dyslexia, and I had a really hard time. I remember going home being like, how am I ever going to make it through? I went from a school of having 7 kids in a class to having 20. The only class that was helpful for me was social studies because Mr. Chen was very supportive, and he made sure that I understood what was going on. He said that he remembers not really speaking English very well, and he connected with me because he said that he knew what it was like being different and having a hard time in school. I think that Dr. Lupini should not make this decision because he has not come to meet with us, and he's leaving soon, so he won't have to deal with what happens afterwards. Mr. Chen has definitely changed the lives of so many students in here, as well as mine, and my opinions about school. So thank you.
Thank you, Maribel.
Hello, I'm Isabelle Hoffman, a student at BHS and a former Driscoll alumni. Mr. Chen wasn't only a teacher, he was a leader, an inspiration. He has taught us so many things, including, to me. He has taught me how to look at the world in a different way. I remember going to him after school and talking about homework and having a discussion about what we had learned in class. He would help me understand things that I didn't understand and taught me new things that I would have never learned on my own. He taught me how to speak in public and not give up no matter what. He also told me that there are no wrong answers and I should try my hardest in every class. Firing Mr. Chen won't just affect me, it'll affect people in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade and the entire Brookline community. Please, please let Mr. Chen stay. If you don't let him stay, we'll keep protesting until he comes back. Thank you.
Now that you've heard everything the students have to say about Mr. Chen, you know that this isn't just any teacher.
This is a teacher that each and every student desperately needs for their middle school education. We obviously wouldn't be here if this teacher didn't matter a lot to us. Even students who have only been here for less than 2 months can say they have never had a more creative, hardworking, and dedicated teacher. We ask the school board to take this into consideration before making their decision. I mean, this is an entire community supporting him, and you can't ignore this.
I have 3 minutes, right? Something like that. All right. Yeah. So I have a prepared. My name's T.J. McCundon, and I have a prepared statement, but I just wanted to start off by thanking Dr. Connolly for listening to us. I think that he's handled this very well. You know, he kind of got thrown into the deep end as soon as he got here, and I think he's done a very good job. My name is T.J. McCundon, and I have served as the Model UN High School volunteer at Driscoll for 2 years, with Mr. Chen as the faculty advisor for the entirety of that time. In this capacity, I was one of the 2 high school students present when Larry Chen allegedly said the word BS is fully spelled out. As my family has shared with the superintendent and the school committee in a letter, I was not offended by that word at all. In fact, it was so inoffensive that it didn't even register with me that the word had been used until another teacher confronted Mr. Chen about it. As one of the students involved in this, I feel the need to make this abundantly clear. At no time did I feel uncomfortable during this conversation. This being said, I feel as if many people tonight will speak to the question of whether the one-time use of BS should bring about the termination of a teacher. I would like to address what I think is a bigger issue in these events. With a great deal of time and energy being spent discussing whether the rules have been followed, one would assume that these rules are in place to protect students and to assure a positive environment that is conducive to learning. If the administration is truly concerned about the well-being of the students in this incident, one would think that they would reach out to me to A, investigate whether or not the statement provided by the other teacher is accurate, and B, inquire about my well-being. However, this is not the case. To be absolutely clear, no one from the Driscoll School Administration or the school system administration has made any attempt to contact me. They've made their decision, and they have no use for the facts. Because of this lack of communication from the administration, they made the decision to terminate a beloved teacher based on a single account, which I should add was only possible to obtain by deliberately eavesdropping on a private conversation. If the administration wished to describe me as an impressionable young person, I would ask you to all think of what messages are truly being sent. As I can see it, based on their conduct, the moral here is that having passion and loving what you do is secondary to keeping your head down and staying out of trouble. There was a rush to judgment here without a full and unbiased investigation, which Mr. Chen, his students, and this community deserve. The administration has not acted in the best interests of the students in this matter. I urge you to do whatever is within your power to reinstate Mr. Chen as a teacher at Driscoll.
Are there any more students?
I don't know.
Are there any more students? Okay, so then do you want to go back? Look, so Dr. Chan, who is representing the Brookline Asian American Family Network. Welcome back, Dr. Chan. Dr. Chan is a former vice chairman of the school committee. Welcome back.
I am not going to be able to follow that. So as Ms. Isaacoff mentioned, I was a school committee member back in from 03 to 09, and I come tonight to speak on behalf of the Brookline Asian American Family Network, which was a group formed several years ago to address the Asian American community needs, because we felt that those needs weren't being addressed specifically by the administration at the time. one of the main things that we asked Dr. Lupini to focus on was to try to hire more Asian American teachers. We've all heard about how important it is to have the teachers and staff represent the diversity that we have in our student body. Well, as far as Asian Americans go, you guys got a lot of work to do. What I noticed though is this issue with Mr. Chen may be even minor compared to what the students have said. I mean, you know, it seems that he hasn't committed a felony. He has been an irritating young teacher who's been extremely creative. And one of the things we pride ourselves in the school district is mentoring teachers like that. I don't think we need to challenge the idea that this is a very talented young man. I've never met him. I have no idea who he is. But as a school committee member, former school committee member, I've never seen this. You know, my first thought as a vice chair would be damage control. Whoa, damage control. And, you know, if he hasn't committed a felony, if he hasn't committed something that egregious, it's time to provide that mentoring, not just to the teacher, but to his supervisors. We really, as a school district, and I have a lot of pride. I'm an empty nester. No, my kids have moved on, but I still have a lot of pride in the Brookline School District. And I had a lot of pride because of the time I spent here. And what we were proud of was addressing issues of closing the achievement gap. What we were proud of was new innovative programs. We don't want to make the news for this. Come on, guys.
So Nancy McCundon's on here. Did you have TJ speak for you, or do you want to speak?
Yeah, we're good. Good.
Someone spoke first.
Yeah, TJ spoke, but does she want to speak? No. Okay. Vanessa Kirsch. You're okay. Okay. Alan, Casey.
First of all, I just want to say to all you extraordinary students, you inspire all of us, and thank you for your leadership. I'm so proud of these young people. I first of all want to thank all of you, the members of the school committee. I know some of you, I don't know most of you, but in preparing for this, I looked you up, I Googled you, and we are really blessed. We have extraordinary people who have been elected as our representatives to guide this district. And you're public servants, you do this as volunteers, you have day jobs, you have families, so I want to thank you for your commitment as public servants. And knowing your backgrounds, I feel that we have chosen the right people and we're in good hands. But I also feel that this situation with Larry Chen has gone way beyond Larry Chen. Ultimately, you as the elected representatives of all of us are charged with setting the vision, the tone, the character, and what this school district is going to represent. And I think in this case, that's what this has become. Are we going to be a district that really has a fair process? Now, I don't think there's been a fair process in this case, I'm sorry to say. The reason you have so many people here is that students and parents have tried repeatedly to have our voices heard. Dr. Lupini has refused. Where is Dr. Lupini tonight?
Yeah, where is he?
There's a hearing tomorrow.
Where is Dr. Lupini?
Everybody knew that this was the chance for people to be heard, and still Dr. Lupini has not taken the time to hear, even listen. Congratulations on selecting Dr. Connolly as the intern. The first person in leadership who actually responded was when the students said they got so frustrated that they actually said, we're not going to go to class. And to your credit, And to Ms. Wood's credit, you immediately came and you listened to them, and you listened until you heard everything you had to say. And I was moved when you said, when you shared your own story about a 5th grade teacher changing your life, and that it was one of the most moving experiences of your you've had an extraordinary educational career listening to these students, and we've got a feeling for that tonight. So are we going to be a district of fair process that really includes the voices of the students who are most affected and the parents? There hasn't been fair process in this. Are we going to be a district that encourages creative, talented young teachers and, as Dr. Chen said, mentors them and nurtures them? I think, and I want to echo what Giri said, Larry Chen has waived his rights, his confidentiality rights. I've had a chance to look at it. When I first heard this, honestly, from my own experience, I thought, unless he's been doing drugs or something inappropriate with a student, I can't believe he's being fired. There are no allegations like that. He's made mistakes. He's acknowledged that he's made mistakes. But are we going to be a district that encourages creativity and talented and mentors young teachers? Or are we going to be one that says you have to fit into a mold, and if you don't fit in the mold and you have some conflicts, we're going to move you out? That's what it's not just about. It's about all the other creative, talented teachers. And I've heard of others that have been frustrated. And are we going to be a district, ultimately, as you opened up, Dr. Connolly, that really wants our students to do what they're doing, which is engage in the democratic process, learn to stand up for what they believe in. I have been privileged to be part of so many causes of social justice. I've fought with people on civil rights, on LGBT rights, for national service, to fight poverty, for gender equality. And in all that work, and I've been privileged to work with lots of incredible people, I have never seen young people stand up to fight for a teacher, a middle school teacher, because they are so passionate about their education. And they're doing that because Larry Chen inspired all of them to do this. So are we going to be a district that recognizes that and rewards that in terms of being heard and makes room for that? Or are we going to be one that says, great, that's nice, but go back to class and the adults will take care of it? So I just want to implore you, and I know there's questions about your role in this process and what legal authority you have and all that, but you do have the authority to hire and fire the superintendent. Dr. Lupini, as Gary pointed out, as this letter from 100 parents has said, has 3 days left. We hope that he will finish out his term and that this matter will be handed off to Dr. Connolly, who's exhibited some leadership already and who we think will have a fair process and make sure that the voices of the parents and students are heard. And ultimately, we hope that you will think about how you can guide this district into the future and make sure that it's one that really does have fair process, is inclusive, nurtures talented teachers, and most of all, empowers our students and children to do what these incredible young people have done. Thank you very much for your
Thank you, Alan. Martha Whiting? Martha Whiting?
I passed it to the students.
Okay, so you can if you want to. No, okay. Victoria over. Oh, you already spoke. Okay, sorry. Irina spoke already? No. No, okay, thank you.
Okay. This is gonna be short, but I'm Irina Tarvanisian, and I had Mr. Chen for 1 year, and this is my second year in high school, and a lot of people here are from high school, and they didn't forget Mr. Chen. This is not just a 1 year thing. Like, it's not like he's done being your teacher and that's over. We still remember him as a great teacher. And if about the swear word, in middle school, a lot of people know that swear word, all of them. So, so that's not a shocking thing to say. And in high school, people say it all the time. Teachers even do that all the time. And Mr. Chen did not do anything illegal in that case. And also, if you're ask any student here, and if you don't believe us, then ask the parents, and they'll tell you the same exact thing.
Thank you, Irina.
Hi there, Donna Remen, and I do want to say that this, at some level, is about one word, because without that word, Larry would still be in the classroom teaching. I'm here on behalf of my son, Jacob, who was present with TJ when the swear word episode occurred. I'll tell you, he didn't notice it. He wasn't offended by it. Our family wasn't offended by it. But more importantly, as TJ pointed out, nobody from the administration at any point at all, reached out to Jacob, reached out to the family to inquire about our well-being. If this was, this whole episode really and truly feels like less like it feels more like a personal attack against a character who has added color and motivation and charisma and love and passion and so many things that we don't normally see in a teacher. And I also want to, oh wait, sorry about that. Apologies. I did have something more to say. Huh? Okay.
Do you want to take a minute?
Yeah, I apologize. I do have something more to say, and
okay,
it's really just escaped me.
So just hold that thought.
Okay.
So this is the end of who is signed up for public comment. If there are other people here who want to make public comment, could you raise your hands? Okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, there is. Sorry, I got it. Is there? Okay. So
I just wanted to say, I do want to say, I just want to urge you, school committee. I want to urge you, school committee, to realize that an appropriate response in a circumstance like this on behalf of a beloved teacher who's highly educated, highly motivated, high performing, at every given moment is giving 200% of himself. An appropriate response is mentorship. I echo in leadership the words that have already been said. And just on behalf of Jake, I want to read what he has said. Last year, Mr. Chen was invaluable to Model UN Club. He was the only teacher willing to stay after school and supervise us, and he has gone far beyond supervision by taking an extremely active role in the club. Since then, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with him and to know Mr. Chen. I've never met a more charismatic or dedicated teacher. He prioritizes his students above all else, which is clearly shown through their support for him. Driscoll is lucky to have Mr. Chen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Donna. Do we have more people signed up? With the permission of the committee, I'm going to keep going. Is that all right? Yeah? Okay. Scott Murphy, do you have 3 minutes? Can you come up to the microphone? Sorry, Scott Murphy, and then Jenny Goldsmith, and then Andrew Leong. Thank you. Leong. Are you still putting up minutes so at least we have a sense? Okay, thanks, Ben.
Chair, as you can see from the sign-up sheet, I'm here to speak about the district bullying policy and more general things. I'll come back to speak about that, but I just want to take a minute to mention a few things. We seem to have a few overlaps with the issues I have with the thing as far as transparency, accountability, the implementation of policies. And I just want to say to this Driscoll group here that I'm inspired. It also seemed to be in my household viewed as a quiet K-8 community, which I'll never think of it again that way. And I want to thank Larry Chen for inspiring these students. I'm blessed with a couple of kids that like to speak out and be leaders themselves, and they can't always do that, and they learn along the way. But thank you very much. I'll be back to speak about the bullying policy.
Thank you, Scott.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you for your patience. Hi, everyone. Izzy says hi. Louie says hi. My name's Jennifer Goldsmith. I'm, let's see what I have here. I'm a resident of Brookline, a former Driscoll parent, a BHS parent, a town meeting member, myself a former teacher, and let's see. I wanted to say I have to say, first of all, neither of my kids had Mr. Chen as a teacher. I don't have kids at Driscoll now. I wish my kids had had Mr. Chen as a teacher. But I wanted to say something sort of more broadly, because I think as a community we're all affected by this. Whether our kids were in this or not, this is on the news, this is in the newspaper, this is a reflection of our community and who we want to be. And I feel like we're entrusted with two precious resources. We're entrusted with this district that has endured as among the best in the Commonwealth, I'd say among the best in the country. It's a district that's diverse economically, racially, ethnically, in the breadth of ideas that we should be really proud of. And I think one thing that comes really clear about Mr. Chen is he encouraged a diversity of ideas. It doesn't sound like everyone agreed with him uniformly, but what thinking is about is conflicting ideas. And I think we need to be really proud of that. It frightens me to think that there's only one way to view an issue. We're also entrusted with the education of wonderful children and young adults who rely on our wisdom and judgment and governance and innovation. I wish I could end there. But as a parent and a town meeting member and a taxpayer, I am exhausted by the focus not on our accomplishments and talents and wisdom, but rather on the distractions that seem to be taking over every conversation about Brookline really for the past several years. From trying to decide whether to build a new elementary school or not build, or Old Lincoln or not Old Lincoln, an MCAD decision in favor of Mr. Mims, which is to say against Brookline because we were found responsible for having discriminated against a teacher, for having sweetheart contract for Dr. Lupini, for an embattled override race, and for what seems like really unprecedented turnover among principals. It's lovely to meet all the interim principals, but I'm a little curious why there are so many principals turning over. And now what I can only describe as like a really strange oversight of a personnel process. And to echo TJ's point, like there's a thought police thing that comes in here. Is every conversation overheard and reported if somebody doesn't agree with the word someone uses? That's just freaky. I mean, it seems to me, ironically, our only good news from our district is the empowerment of our kids, which is despite the schools, not because of them, with the exception of what Larry Chen taught them, the person who we're questioning. So I really am distressed, and I'm speaking as a parent whose kids love Driscoll and someone who, like most people in town, stretched financially to live here. I feel like our schools are not holding up their end of the bargain. Our classroom teachers are often innovative and stellar and creative. Our superintendent, unfortunately, now you, our school committee, are selling us short, and I'm hopeful that you will resolve this case favorably and fairly. But more importantly, not more importantly, this is very important. In parallel, let me say, I'd really like to hear a commitment that our search for a new superintendent is going to demonstrate a serious change. Inclusion and transparency and fewer platitudes and fewer trust us, we know what we're doing. I think a shift away from that attitude and somehow engaging as many students as you have engaged in protest in a positive way as we're figuring out what our future needs to be, not as the district that says no and the district that is embattled about this or that, but the district that's innovative in thinking and learning and education and ideas. And finally, I know that you all are working very hard. I can't imagine the commitment of hours that you all put in week after week, day after day. But I think that despite all of the routine stuff that has to happen, sometimes things are outside the routine and you have to listen to what is outside the routine. And finally, many of us in this room actually worked really hard to get an override passed last year. It's our responsibility now to the parent population, which is a minority in the town, but actually to all the homeowners in the town, to really be wise stewards of this resource. We devalue ourselves, we devalue our community, we devalue our kids if we don't make our schools as strong as they can be. That's what I have to say.
Mr. Leong, and then we have a few other people, Talia Langton, and then we have Basia and Masha, who might have spoken already. Okay. Yes. Okay. So Talia, Basia, and Masha, and then Isabelle Hoffman. Go
ahead. Good evening. My name is Andrew Leong. I am a resident of Brookline, and I have a son at Brookline High School. I'm also a lawyer. I have also referred many cases to the ACLU, and this is one of them that I have referred and will be speaking with staff attorneys there about. That's not the kind of news that I would like Brookline to be headline of, okay? But this is the kind of trouble that is inherent within our school system when we have principals, when we have teachers that are maybe taking the book 1984 a little bit, too much, okay? To be spying on private conversations, right, of people in the hallway without really contextualizing it, without caring to do factual investigation, okay? The kind of procedural errors I have seen, the lack of investigation I have seen in this case, if it were a court of law, I would have immediately thrown it out. But instead, we have wasted all this time and energy of everyone. And I know you guys want it to go away too. We would love it for it to go away, okay? And you have the power to do it, and you know how to do it. We heard it all from these folks, okay? But the thing that I do want to impress upon you is the fact that we've had a regime here that is Big Brother, that is 1984. In that first termination letter that was sent to Larry, they inappropriately and incorrectly cited Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 266, Section 120, which is... You guys don't even know what we're talking about. Calm down, calm down. Let me read you the excerpt, okay? Because what that section of the letter that was handed to Larry, okay, has a chilling effect on his First Amendment right. It said in that letter, in his termination letter, pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 266, Section 120, you are directed not to contact any public school of Brookline students or parents while you are on paid administrative leave, whether in person, electronically, or in writing. So for me, I don't have a child in Driscoll, but I'm a Brookline parent. But according to that letter, he's in violation if he talks to me, right? Is that the kind of environment that we want to encourage in Brookline? I don't think so. So you guys have a system, you guys have a systemic problem here to deal with. If teachers, if principals within the Brookline system are administering that kind of a 1984 environment, which I don't think we are in favor of whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Leon.
enthusiastic.
Talia
Tamar Tillman.
So Talia Langton was next? Okay.
Hi, I'm Talia Langton. I'm a sophomore in high school, and I, like many of you, had the blessing of having Mr. Chen as my teacher. This is, okay. Mr. Chen, we wouldn't be here supporting a teacher we just liked. We like teachers who don't give too much homework. We like teachers who let us do whatever we want in class and let us go to the bathroom without asking. We like teachers like that. We deeply, deeply appreciate Mr. Chen. He gave us lots of homework. It was homework that made us learn. He taught us so much, and it is a testament to how great of a teacher he is, that so many students and so many parents with so many varying values and ideas all support him. He didn't just preach what he thought. He taught us to think. He gave us the facts we need, and he gave us the primary sources we needed, and he gave us what we needed to form our own views. And in class, we learned from each other, and we learned from each other's views and values, and it was the most rich educational experience I have ever had. He taught us to feel. He emphasized historical empathy, and he helped us put ourselves in the place of people in history. And I have never felt a stronger connection to history. I have rarely felt a stronger connection to anything. And finally, he taught us to do. He's why I put my name on that list. He taught us that our voices deserve to be heard and that we need to put ourselves out there to make change. He taught us everything we need to be good citizens, to be good people, to be good students. He is the reason many of us are still succeeding in history, in school. He has turned kids around. That is what we need in a teacher, and we cannot let that go.
Do you want to go back up? Okay, go ahead. Can you just go to the microphone? Thanks. Are you Basia or Masha? Okay.
So this will be really quick. It's been said, I just want to say it again. Mr. Lupini isn't here. Neither is Miss Cook. These are the people who are supposed to be taking our views into account and doing what's best for the entire community. And here is almost the entire community right here saying exactly what we think, exactly what needs to be heard, and they're nowhere to be found. So...
We have 2 more people signed up. Isabelle Hoffman. She spoke already? Okay. Bella Cameron. Okay.
Okay, so it's been said many, many times before, but it's so important. Mr. Chen was such a wonderful teacher, and I feel so lucky that I had him. I remember, I don't know exactly what day of class it was, but it was very early in my 7th grade year, and we were learning about 9/11. And I had gone into that class, and had been expecting a textbook, because that's all I had ever done. But I came out, and I was nearly crying, because it was so powerful what I had learned. So please, please don't take us, please, please don't take that away from us.
Thank you. So we're at the end of people who've signed up. If there are still people who want to make public comment, can you raise your hands just so we have a sense?
Let's line up. Do we have to line up?
Yeah. So
that's good.
So if
Oh
we can
my
just,
God.
so just one request, you guys. One request. Folks, one request. So we will still. Can I have your attention, please? So we'll still let everyone speak who wishes to speak. I will only make this request, okay, which is that if you are saying something substantially similar to what has been said before, make that known, and maybe cede your time to the next person. But we will let people speak. So go ahead. Please just say your name at the beginning.
Tamar Tillman, and I'm here. I'm a 6th grader parent, and what's amazing here that we have 6th graders here who never had this teacher. We have Julius here. We have my own Daphne. We have Nora here. We have Francisco is standing in line, and we have others. So this is whom am I hope to represent the student that will have Dr. Chen next year, Mr. Chen next year. So I have a personal note and then a professional note with your permission. Right now in Coolidge Corner, there is a movie. The name of the movie is He Named Me Malala. I urge everybody to go and to see the story of Malala, who is the Nobel Prize winner last year for education in Pakistan. Each one of you is Malala. Each one of the students here who came here is Malala. And I think that Maya and the father are exactly the mirror of Malala and her father. So go ahead and see it. It's amazing, and we're moved by that. So I want to tell you, I think that in many ways, this dismissal should have been stopped in the school level. And I'm quite shocked that it wasn't stopped. And as a parent here, and this is my professional note, in a way you are a dean of all the schools here, Dr. Conley. I'm a dean of a medical school. This is in your authority to dismiss the case without any probation, without anything, without any remark in Mr. Chen's records. You should, this is your moral obligation to dismiss it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Naeem Wolfork. I'm now a 10th. I've come back here. I had something to do at school. I skipped that to come and talk to Mr. Chen. I have one. Need the 3 question. What makes Driscoll teachers different than every other teachers in Brookline? Mr. Chen was that difference, and now you're taking him away. No teacher, when I was in school, no teacher would stay after school like Mr. Chen. Everybody was worried about going home as soon as the bell rang. Mr. Chen was there at 5:36. It's not to call out the Driscoll teachers, but Mr. Chen was there every single day, Friday, every single day. I mean, he was sleeping on the table because he was so tired. He was so tired of working every single day. I mean, he was there all the time, and I don't know how you could take that away.
Thank you.
I'm Cecilia Cipolo, and I'm a sophomore at Brookline High School. I had Mr. Chen in his first year at Driscoll, and as has been said, he was innovative. He was extremely innovative. At Brookline High, as I'm absolutely positive my fellow high schoolers here can attest to, we are constantly comparing our history teachers to Mr. Chen. These are direct quotes from lunchtime or during class. I have classmates from Driscoll in my history classes. We say, ugh, I just want Mr. Chen again. Or, my teachers are okay, but she's not a Mr. Chen. Or I mean, the homework load here would be fine if all my teachers were Mr. Chens. But they're not. There's only one Mr. Chen. My history class this year, and I do not mean to be offensive to the Brookline High teachers, but it's just so boring. My history class last year was so boring. If I went back and relived history class in 8th grade, I'd probably learn more than I'm learning now. 2 grades higher since I was so invested every single day, as these kids are every single day. Do we want to take away the best teacher Driscoll's ever had and the kids will have probably throughout their high school career? I don't know, and apparently that decision isn't up to us, but we've made our point. We're all here today, and it would just be a huge loss for Driscoll, these kids, and the rising middle schoolers if they didn't have Mr. Chen to look forward to. Their morale at the school, if he leaves, is going to be so low. They won't want to learn anymore. And right now, like they're saying, they value history. If their morale is low, they're not going to value history. They've said it themselves, and we should keep that.
Okay, so I'm Abdullah Ahmad. I go to Driscoll, and I'm an 8th grader. I just want to start this off with a rhetorical question again. Isn't this enough? Isn't this enough to show that we love this teacher? This teacher is not even a teacher anymore. He's a philosopher. He tells us to speak our opinions and to show us that all opinions aren't wrong. He also shows us that textbooks aren't the worst, but he doesn't get all of his lessons out of the textbooks, like some other teachers. I have a sister in 6th grade. I have told her multiple times about how great Mr. Chen is. Think about how disappointed the 6th graders will be when they go into class in 7th grade, social studies, and they see that Mr. Chen is not sitting on his chair, and they've heard so many great things about this teacher. And there's many people in this room, and I may include myself, who wouldn't be here if it was for any other teacher. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Olga. I'm a 7th grader at Driscoll School. And
Olga, what's your last name?
Kaminsky. Okay. So from last year at the ribbon ceremony, when Mr. Chen came up to give out the awards, he started talking about some references from earlier that year. And I thought, dang, that's the teacher I want to have next year. When the end of my 6th grade year started ending, our 6th grade teachers told us that some of them are going to be teaching a section of 7th grade next year. I started freaking out thinking, no, 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 no.
Mr. Chen is the teacher I want. I don't want any other teacher than him. I really want him. When I came to the first day of school of 7th grade, I was nearly ecstatic that I had Mr. Chen as my social studies teacher this year. It's only been maybe like a month of school, and right away he's gone. He's taught me so much in just a month, and it would be a shame if you fired him.
So I just want to note we're about an hour past where we were supposed to be. We're still willing to listen, especially if there are new things. Definitely tell us that. So thank you. Can you just tell us your name?
Hi, my name's Nairi Hajian. I've only had Mr. Chen for the beginning of 7th grade, and I personally was never a fan of history at all. But Mr. Chen made me learn to love history. The way he taught was so unique, and on the first week of school, we learned about historical empathy. He taught us to put ourselves in other people's shoes. Yet here, even when we say it's in our best interest to have us back, you still deny that fact. Even when we have this whole room filled, he's still not back. And I just think that we have this whole room here. We have everyone supporting him, and yet still, he's not back, and he's not teaching at Driscoll where he should be.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Simone Cook, and I'm a 5th grader at the Michael Driscoll School, and this is going to be quick. So, every day, my sister, Camille Cook, would come home and tell my family and me great things that happened during Mr. Chen's class that day. And I would always want him to be in my class. I would want him to teach me because I feel like I would have fun and it would just be a great learning experience for me. And I would just be so devastated if he was not there when I get into 7th grade. So, thank you.
Thanks, Simone.
Hi, my name is Linnea Colton, and I had Mr. Chen for 2 years. When my brother was transitioning into high school, he told me he was taking standard history. And I thought that was ridiculous because he's a fairly smart student. But he told me all about how history was so boring and you just learned about dates and like facts and events, and the teacher just droned on, and I believed him because he was my role model. But then I had Mr. Chen, and he completely changed my view on history, and if I could take advanced history, I would, but unfortunately I can't. So he completely changed my view on history.
Thanks, Linnea.
Hi, I'm Graham Crewinghouse. You should just guess how to spell it. It's really long.
I'm going to ask Maya.
So I understand that this swearing incident was one of several incidents and problems, and it was sort of the last straw, so to speak. I think that swearing shouldn't qualify as a straw. Now, he brought us here for 2 main reasons. 1, because we want him back, and 2, because he taught us how to speak our minds. Now, the school board's job is to act on the students' concerns. This is us expressing our concerns, and now it's your turn to act on them. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adam Denker. I'm just going to add to Graham's ideas right here. So on the first day of school, I was pretty nervous because I'm a new student transferred from Singapore. And I had great classmates, and my first class was actually Mr. Chen's class. And I saw, as the moment I walked in there, that this guy was going to be like my favorite teacher. And during lunch that day, I saw Graham sitting there at the table. And I walked up to him and sat with him. The conversation we had was about how great Mr. Chen was of a teacher, and just about all our teachers and how he was the best one, and how it was just incredible. It would be just such a shame to see him go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Jablon. To be honest, I am very scared right now.
Doing great.
Mr. Chen has been Mr. Chen has been one of my. At first, I was like most of the students. I wasn't with history not being my best subject. One of my. However, when I first met Mr. Chen, I thought he would be like them at first. However, after a few days of studying under him, he has proved to me that he has been one of the best teachers that Driscoll has ever had. Heck, I even invited him to my bar mitzvah. Okay, you can settle down now. Thank you. Anyway, another thing, when I was in 6th grade, I was sort of part of the Lego League. Anyway, and one day I saw that he was on the computer with. One day I think it was the first day I ever met him. He was talking about Star Wars. I never knew that. I didn't think he would be like that. And when I started 8th grade, I was really happy that I was going to have Mr. Chen and teach me all the way until I reached high school. But that happiness was short-lived when Dr. Lupini, the main antagonist of this, brought him down because he said the BS in front of 2 high schoolers. In my honest opinion, that is also BS. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Hi, my name is Maya Powers. I'm also an 8th grader at Driscoll School, and like Ben, I am very, very nervous. I first saw or heard of Mr. Chen in 6th grade at the end of the year during the award ceremony. He was different than the other teachers because the other teachers said that, yes, that the students were great and that they were engaged, but he also said, he said a joke. I don't remember all of it now, but part of it was about how he has a special grading system in his computer, and when people do too well, it breaks his computer, and that his students were on a constant stride to break his computer. And that made me really, really interested in him, and I knew that we were going to have him next year for 7th grade, so I was actually looking forward to school while I had my summer vacation, and that sounds very weird, but it's true. And he's taught everybody so much. Last year we learned about ancient civilizations. That was really awesome. We learned about Mesopotamia, which a beauty pageant contestant didn't even know what that was, and he showed us a video of that at the beginning of the year. And this year we're going to learn about American history, and everyone thinks, oh, American history, anyone can teach that. But no one can exactly teach it like Mr. Chen. I think that everybody here can agree that even if you do fire him, you never find us a teacher like Mr. Chen. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya.
Hello, my name is Wesley Price, and I'm a 7th grader at the Driscoll School. And I just want to say that I first heard about Mr. Chen in 5th grade. And since then, I had been very excited to be able to learn with him in 7th and 8th grade. And even though I've only had him for 3 weeks, he is really.
Can you hold on 1 second? There's a lot of noise. There are people leaving the room, so just hold on 1 second. Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
He has really taught me more than my previous history teachers have ever taught me. And I really think that taking away Mr. Chen would not just disturb the Driscoll students, but it would disturb Brookline. And I wanted to say that one of the main reasons that makes Brookline so good is because of its education. And Mr. Chen would be Mr. Chen is one of the main reasons that Brookline has very good education, and I feel like all the schools are so good. And one of the main reasons that Driscoll is the best school is because of Mr. Chen. And I honestly think that taking away Mr. Chen would commit a crime and would make the Brookline education so much worse than what it is today.
Leslie.
Hi, my name is Francisco Andres, and I have never met Mr. Chen, but I have heard from several students and parents that he is one of, if not the best teacher in the entire Driscoll community. And I have seen teachers being fired before. And the difference between Mr. Chen and those teachers I've seen is that people actually care about Mr. Chen because he is beyond good by teacher standards. He is beyond good by teacher standards. I've seen mediocre teachers fired, and either people were relieved or just didn't care. But with Mr. Chen, even though I've never met him, I actively support him, and wow, schools fire people for very, very small reasons.
Thank you, Francisco.
Hi, I'm Milani Israel, and I'm also kind of part of this-ish. Like, me and my friend Mirabelle made the t-shirts, and I'm the student that, you know, he's kind of, not, what's it called? No, he's being accused of breaking. Yeah. And I can tell you guys a story, because in 7th grade, I switched homerooms. I don't know why, but Mr. Chen was trying to get one of the students to sit next to me for my best interest so I would feel welcome when I went into the class. And excuse me if I get emotional, but yeah, and I felt great because I used to be really, really mean to people for no reason. So when I started being nice, people didn't really believe it, and the fact that one of the students actually sat next to me was pretty, you know, exciting. So Mr. Chen really shouldn't get fired because, like, he didn't break confidentiality because I'm pretty sure it wasn't confidential, and I already told the whole grade before I switched classes, so it didn't really make any sense. And also the time and the money spent on Mr. Chen through these t-shirts, we spent like $200-300 on these t-shirts. All these t-shirts with the layout and the font on these posters, me and my friend made. We stayed up till like 10:30 making these t-shirts. We bought out Old Navy. We went on a search for t-shirts. We went to Primark, we went to Old Navy, we went to Target. We bought a silkscreen kit for like $82. And if Mr. Chen gets fired, I don't know what to say. And it's just gonna be such a shame. Not having Mr. Chen for my last year at Driscoll would just be devastating. I don't know what I would do. Graduating, not seeing him at graduation, it's just sad.
Thank you, Lonnie.
I'm Julia Sarolovich, and I'm in 6th grade in Driscoll. I have been in bullying situations more than once already, and I know that the reaction in Brookline is inappropriate for this. And now it's not just about me. It's just all of these people which are affected by this inappropriate process. And we need to fix that. It's not okay.
Hi, I'm Tobias Albrecht. I'm in 7th grade at Driscoll.
Hold on. Can you start over? There's a little bit of talking, and we want to make sure we hear you. Can you just?
Hi, I'm Tobias Albrecht. I'm in 7th grade, and I just have a short announcement. So, so far, like, we've only had Mr. Chen for like 2 weeks or so, and I already know he is our history teacher. He is the only one that is going to be our history teacher, and really this whole decision is BS. I mean, he it just doesn't make sense. He is our history teacher. Thank you.
Thank you, Tobias.
My name is Alex Cook, and I'm in 5th grade. So, no offense, but I think we can all agree, probably, that we kind of learn the same thing every year in history class. And my sister Camille, in 8th grade now, she always told me and Simone about how great it was, and I remember her, like, she used to be really sad about all our classes until when I was in 4th grade when Mr. Chen was there, and he really opened up Camille. So yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
So, do you have something new? You do.
Yeah.
Do speak?
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I just want to ask all you middle schoolers, how many of you have actually used the word like BS before? Just raise your hand. Yeah.
Okay. So. Okay.
Okay. So I just want to point out that this is not like an offensive language to us. Like this is what we say daily. Like just.
So boys and girls, if there's anybody who hasn't spoken who wants to speak, okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Emma Crotchella King. I think all these stories and everyone here and I think everything's been said, but I just think this isn't really ever gonna end because even if he does get fired, he's still gonna have all these people who like support him, and yeah, sorry.
So, if there's anybody else who hasn't spoken who wants to speak, okay, I think.
Has anyone else not spoken that would like
Maya.
to speak about Mr. Chen?
One second, folks. So we're about an hour and a half over, which is fine. There was a lot to say and there was a lot to hear. If there's anybody else who hasn't spoken who wants to speak, we're happy to hear that. We are, just so you know, trying to schedule a Q&A with Dr. Connolly at Driscoll sometime in the next week or so. When is it? If not this week. If not this week, we're going to try for this week.
If you felt you still wanted someone to speak to and share your feelings, I'll make myself available. If because of tonight's forum, you feel you no longer have that need, then we'll pass on me coming to the school for that purpose.
Okay. All right. So if there's anyone else for public comment, we're going to move on to the next agenda item. I just want to say thank you all for coming. You were.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Ditkoff, but on the behalf of the group, I would just like to say that all of the allegations thus far have been addressed in his file. Melania has come and spoken of her case. TJ and Jacob's mother has come, and they have discussed theirs. I know that I was involved in the social media leak, and I would just like to say that also the two things about BS. That's BS. And generally, no, I'm saying that we've addressed everything, and we would like to thank you for the extra hour and a half of your time, but I think it's time for us to go now. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. And thank you so much for. I just. we're waiting for the room to clear, you have a few. Right. So while we're waiting for the room to clear, we do have the next set of agenda items. We're going to, sure, thanks you guys. So we're going to move, thank you. We're going to, we need to keep going, I'm sorry. So we're going to move on to finance, Ms. Stone, we are going to move on to finance subcommittee reports. Beth, I'm not sure if you can hear us. Okay, so why don't we skip finance, and we're going to start with capital then. Can you turn on your mic? So we're going to skip finance for the moment. We're going to start with capital. We'll come back to finance when it's a little bit quieter and Beth can hear us.
All right, so the capital subcommittee met on Friday morning, October 2nd. Well, I'm mic'd, so the chair is driving us forward. We had two agenda items that were discussed. The first was a report from Aaron Galantine of Parks and Recreation on the issues surrounding warrant Article 6, which is a warrant article that would that's asking town meeting to dedicate 55 out of 65 acres of Lars Anderson Park to Title 97, exclusively parks use, and this is in conjunction with, it would be to support a grant application for something up to $400,000 to renovate paths and roadways circulation in the park. So we heard from Aaron Galantine on the history on the park, on the warrant article, on the grant application. We also heard from the town planner Allison Steinfeld, who spoke about the various planning initiatives that are underway in town, starting with the search for land for a ninth school. That's the current effort, and then another project that's been funded for the current fiscal year to do an inventory of town-owned parcels, and then the third effort is to look at large parcels throughout town that may or may not have an ability to contribute to meeting town public needs. And there were some questions from the committee and an initial discussion, but no action or vote on that. Then we moved on to really what was an initial discussion of the school department's CIP requests, which sort of take two forms. There's the fiscal 17 CIP requests, and then there's also, it always gets scheduled out for 6 succeeding years. And it was really only an initial conversation in which Charlie Simmons from the building department and Mary Ellen Dunn, our Deputy Superintendent for Administration and Finance, were interested in hearing from the committee, or at least initiating a discussion about what the overarching priorities of the school committee were in terms of the CIP. And they were looking for some guidance at a high level so that we could then carry on the discussion at a more detailed level this Friday morning at 8 o'clock when we reconvene.
Questions for the chair? Ms. Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thanks, David. I'm sorry I was unable to be at that meeting and participate. As we will discuss later under government relations, we also talked about the warrant article this morning. So at some point it would be good to get the minutes from that meeting to put them together with what we discussed this morning.
Certainly. I will endeavor to have them ready for Friday morning.
Anything else? Any other updates? Any other capital updates? Okay. Beth, can you hear us now? Yes, I can. Okay, do you have any update from finance? We had a town school partnership meeting this morning, which is hard to remember at this point. It feels like 7 meetings ago, Ms. Dunn. I think the main point was that there was a bit of additional state aid and Chapter 70 funding that came in, and it was allocated, and there were a couple of pieces from the override discussion last year that needed to get cleaned up in this budget. Nothing new. One was the group health insurance line and allocation, given that our employee numbers are up. And the second was a transfer of money from our buildings budget from one place to another. It was sort of accounting from us to buildings, which was a bit of an accounting thing. There was some discussion about all of the wonderful progress on the devotion school project, which we've been talking about here for some time. And then a mention, which we've mentioned here as well, that next Thursday night, October 22nd, we would be getting a report on the 9th elementary school in joint session with the selectmen. Was there anything else?
That covers it pretty well. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, standing on one foot, as it were. Okay, that's all, Beth.
Great, that's all from me.
Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? Okay. Curriculum, Ms. Charlepsky.
We have a meeting coming up on October 21st.
Government Relations, Ms. Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We did meet this morning to consider the warrant articles that were before town meeting that have some mention or relevance to the school committee in order to determine whether or not we would recommend as a subcommittee of the school committee to the full committee to take a position or not on these warrant articles, and if a position were to be taken, make a recommendation as to the position to take. We will be ready with a full write-up of those discussions. We discussed and heard from petitioners for Article 6, which has to do with, it was Article 6 was the Lars Anderson. Discussed that, although we did not hear from petitioners on Article 6. We heard from petitioners on Article 7 about earned sick time. We heard from petitioners on Article 18, which is a resolution on diversity in hiring. And we deferred to October 22nd at 5 p.m. the discussion of warrant Article 16, which is about which one is it?
Testing.
Sorry, testing. I knew. Thank you. Because petitioners had asked us to allow a time when teachers could be present, and that was certainly a reasonable request, and happy to accede to it. So we will meet, I believe it may have been posted already, 4:45, sorry, because we have a meeting later, right. So 4:45 on October 22nd, we will take up just warrant Article 16, again, to see if there is a position that the school committee wishes to take, and then we will discuss at full committee either that night or subsequently on the 29th if we're not ready about whether or not to take a vote on that position, should we have one.
Did you guys discuss MASC resolutions?
We did not. Dr. Jackson and I, Dr. Jackson as our representative to MASC, and I discussed how to bring those to the committee as we did last year. We decided, since we were short on time with all of the warrant articles, that we would, as we did last year, bring a memo to the full committee at our meeting on the 22nd. And as part of the Government Relations Subcommittee report, simply discuss that memo and get votes at the time. We don't believe, on preliminary scanning of the resolutions, we don't believe there is anything hugely controversial, so that we'll have time at our next meeting to discuss them in full and take a vote on a position to recommend that our representative take on our behalf.
Dr. Jackson, thank you in absentia for agreeing to be renominated as our MASC representative. It has been known as hazing, but we don't haze here on the Brookline School Committee. We only give people step-up opportunities to learn and grow in their role as new school committee members. Mr. Pollack.
I attended the school subcommittee of the advisory committee's meeting or hearing, I'm not sure what it was, on warrant article 16, and there was some discussion, or actually a request from that advisory subcommittee, that the petitioners consider revising that. It's been revised.
It's been revised, and we have a copy of the revised.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that.
Anything else on government relations? So next Thursday we will take up the warrant articles. Policy review, Dr. Jackson.
So our last meeting was September 17th, and we spent the majority of time talking about our admissions policy, and we'll continue to do so. On November 19th, we received some more feedback. For those who don't remember, we took it up in a first reading for the full committee back in the spring, made some changes, came back together as a committee, and further discussed those changes, and are also discussing the changes once again with council, just to ensure that we're being wise about those revisions. Also on November 19th, we need to take up, and will take up, an initial conversation on the restraint policy that must be revised by January to be in compliance with changes in the law. So those will be our two items on November 19th.
Thank you. Superintendent transition, any questions? Sorry. Okay. Superintendent transition process. So there are a couple of items. First of all, as everyone is well aware, but it's worth restating, Dr. Lupini is our superintendent of schools until Friday, October 16th, and when he is not available, Dr. Connolly is our acting interim superintendent. The title is, it's not interesting as to why, but that's your title. It makes the Department of Education happy. And so we have launched immediately an interim search process, meaning a search process for an interim superintendent. That application has been up for almost 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So the deadline is Friday. That'll be just over 2 weeks. We will, a subgroup of us will meet on, we think, we're still working this out a little bit, Ms. Coyne, on Monday to consider the applications. There's a little bit of a question as to exactly what the sequence is next, whether we would vote a candidate or simply express a preference for an interim superintendent candidate. We would probably, if a waiver was necessary, if it was a retired educator and a waiver was necessary, then we would need to go through a process with the department to get a critical shortage waiver, and then we would, if we had that, then we could have a more permanent interim, if you will. But in the meantime, Dr. Connolly is our acting interim superintendent, and there's no lack of clarity around that. It is all a very clear chain of responsibility, and the handoffs are clear. And I think in a minute, Dr. Connolly will tell us a little bit about some of the transition activities. Okay. The other piece that we discussed in our workshop, and I'll just say it now because it's the superintendent transition process item, is we talked about the process to hire a search firm that would source a national diverse pool of candidates for us. The timeline that we agreed to was to post it as of October 15th, and that there's sort of a timeline associated with it. And I think those revisions are getting made right now, and when they're finished, we'll forward that to the committee when it's posted. But anyway, everyone had a chance to weigh in on at length on the wording of that process, and then we'll go from there. So we'll put that timeline out when it's finished. Any other questions on the superintendent? Okay. Additional liaisons and updates. Mr. Chang.
So the last Climate Action Committee meeting, 2 warrant articles, number 13 and 14, were brought to the committees for our endorsement. The authors are Kara Odom and Tommy Vitolo, and this is regarding community choice electrical aggregation program. It's very exciting, by the way. And community choice electrical aggregation is really part of the 1997 utility deregulation in Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The effort was to create municipalities to aggregate electricity use and negotiate electric supply on behalf of residents, small businesses, current on a basic service. So the 2 articles, basically number 13 is to authorize the Board of Selectmen to commence community choice electrical aggregation program. And then Article 14 is a resolution to urge the selectmen to increase the use of electricity from renewable sources. So right now, if we go to that aggregation plan, we'll be able to double our renewable source in terms of electricity generated, which obviously will, improve our carbon emissions and also improve the planet. So it's a very, very exciting warrant article. And by the way, you could opt out of this if you don't want the extra cost, which is maybe $6 or $7 a month. So I would encourage everybody to vote affirmatively on 13 and 14.
That wasn't an actual call for a vote, right? That was it was more of a request for support. Okay, a request for support. So noted. Are there any from town meeting members? Are there other questions about Mr. Chang's report? Okay, thank you. Any other liaisons, updates? Helen Yearley, seriously? Oh my God. We've meetinged out Helen Charlepsky. My goodness, what have we done? Okay, moving right along then to the acting interim superintendent's report. And Mr. Chang, I will note that we are 1 hour and 4 minutes late, and I am not apologizing.
My superintendent's report will include 3 items: an update of October 1 enrollment count. Also give a quick overview of the transition efforts that have occurred in the last few weeks. And I'd also like to give you an update on the 24 Webster Street property, which we're about to move into in a few weeks. Starting with the superintendent transition effort, you have a 2-page summary. It's been a very busy couple of weeks, but somehow we found time to meet and transition. In fact, Dr. Lupini and I met twice last week. In both cases, it was a 2-hour session. We have a 3rd session planned for tomorrow and possibly one before the week's out. We've covered a number of issues. As you can see, I have listed 12 major topics that we talked about. The first was a very, very complex and very demanding meeting schedule. And it's really taken a few days for me to get a handle on the number of meetings. However, they're all very productive and something that needs to happen in a school system such as Brookline. We also talked about the principal search, and I mentioned on the last page of the report that I've also, in my transition effort, I've involved the senior staff. I've reached out to a number of other groups in town, in the school system, and we actually had a meeting with the leadership team, and we talked about the principal search, of the timeline, the process to be followed. We're seeking the principal's input. In our next leadership meeting next Monday, we will try to finalize and firm up the steps of the multiple principalship searches that will occur this year. we intentionally delaying the principal search for about a month or two, realizing that right now the most important search is to get the superintendent search off to a positive start. So we're hoping to start the superintendent search process in December and finish it sometime in the February-March timeframe. The other issues, we've talked about a number of personnel issues. We've talked about the proposed ninth school locations and related issues. We've discussed the school committee idea of conducting office hours. We've also talked about the continued Brookline Public Schools participation in Today's Students, Tomorrow's Teachers program. And I have a meeting scheduled for Thursday with the two high school teachers to coordinate that program, and more on that later. We've also with the senior team, we've discussed the 2015-2016 adjusted goals and priorities due to so many other activities happening this year, and we're going to report on that at the October 29th school committee meeting. We've discussed the unfunded FTEs. We've discussed the ongoing capital projects, the 24 Webster Place office annex, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, and also the potential of changing the devotion project from a very complex two-phase project to a one-phase project by relocating the kindergarten through grade 4 students off-site. And the preferred site right now is 30 Webster Street in Coolidge Corner, and we hope to have that worked out within a few weeks. Otherwise, the option would be to educate the students for the 2-year construction period on site in the playground area in a modular school construction site. We've also just talked about the 5-year capital plan. There's also an annual Mass Association of School Superintendents gives annually an academic achievement award. Bill has briefed me on that, and we'll be presenting that shortly to 2 deserving students. We also have talked about the Brookline Educational Foundation. We have a fall meeting coming up next Monday night. We've talked about the enrollment projections and the areas of concern with the enrollments this year. We've also discussed the 21st Century Fund, which is a high school educational foundation. Transition areas to be discussed this week. That was all discussed last week. What's on the agenda for tomorrow with Bill and I and the senior staff is the FY17 budget calendar and process, the town school partnership and advisory committee roles in the budget development process, the 5-year capital plan, discuss the 4 town meeting warrant articles that either have an impact or relate to the public schools. And as mentioned a moment ago, that's Article 3, Article 6, Article 7, and Article 16. Other transition efforts I want you to be aware of, as I mentioned, I did meet with the principals. We've started a very healthy and productive discussion on the stretch process for the 2 or 3 principals we'll be replacing this year. And the senior staff and I are currently fully engaged in identifying and prioritizing the 215, 216 goals and other deliverables for this school year. So it's been a very active, very busy 2 weeks. I can't say enough for the time Bill has given to me and the senior staff and the principals. They've made my first 2 weeks in the job very productive and encouraging on my part. So that's the transition efforts. Any comments or questions? Yes, Lisa.
Well, first, thank you for that very full list. And I'm not asking for this now, so just to be really clear, given you're still very much in transition. But as you work with principals and other senior staff to approach the hires of new principals, I would look forward to seeing the demographics of our pool and to understand the targeted nature by which we create a diverse pool, particularly for those positions. So I just want to flag that. I know you're going to put it off, so you don't by no means answer it now, but I do look forward to hearing about how that's.
And I assure you we have talked about that, and that's part of our process. The next thing is, oh, sure, Ellen?
I just had heard something about today's students, tomorrow's teachers, the Massachusetts chapter.
Yeah, here's what's happened. This meeting that we had scheduled for Thursday to talk with Malcolm and Jeanette at the high school may still be on, but we've just heard that in this week that one or two of the other towns that participate in this program have dropped out. And so they have canceled the program. The TTST program has been canceled. However, we're going to continue.
There's no reason we can't continue.
Yeah, we're going to continue at the local level. We have 2 teachers that are very committed to the program. They've been very successful in reaching out to these population of students, and we're going to continue that effort this year. So now, whether not really being part of the regional program, we will continue our efforts here in Brookline.
Great, thank you.
Just a yeah, Ms. Gatto.
Question related to that. Part of that program had to do with attending college at particular locations where they had chapters of this. Will we, if we are the only place doing this in the state now, still be part of that national program?
I'm not sure. They have to be kind of vetted out. Clearly, we have 2 teachers that have provided a great deal of support to that population of students at the high school here in Brookline. And we're going to continue to give them that support. And whether or not that leads to college scholarships or college support will have to be worked out.
As I recall, there's a national conference as well that our students have attended. So we could still be involved if we chose to at the higher level, just not regionally.
You're not aware of it? Okay. We'll look into it, but clearly we have no intention of backing away from our support and commitment to that program here in Brookline. Yes.
Okay, just a couple other things. I mean, one was, there were, I don't know if negotiations was on here. I might have missed it. It's a very long list, so.
Did not make the list.
It's probably worth making the list. And then the only other thing is just a clear handoff of any pending items, and I guess I would put the Driscoll situation in that category, but whatever, I'm sure there are many other things. That's just the one that we talked about tonight, but clearly there's a long list of things that are pending, so it'd be great to, okay, great, thank you.
As I mentioned, October 1st is the date each year that your enrollment becomes official statewide. And so the enrollment that existed as of last Thursday, October 1st, becomes our official enrollment for the 2015-2016 school year. The school committee has in their packet tonight two charts. The chart A gives you the enrollments by school and by grade level, but more importantly, it also identifies the class size by grade level in each school. And I'm pleased to report that for the most part in the primary grades, the vast majority of the classes are in that 19 to 23 range, and in the upper elementary grades, the vast majority of the classes are in that 23 to 26 range. We do have a few exceptions, and we're looking at those. The exceptions would be, for example, at the Runkle School in grade 5, we have a 26 and a 26 and a 27. At the Pierce School, we have, at the Driscoll School, we have a higher number in grade 1, 23s and 24s. So there are a few exceptions. What we hope to do in those cases is to give those classroom teachers some academic support through our literacy and our math specialist programs, and any other way we can help them. If I can look at the Runkle School enrollment, the 26 and 27, a total of 53 students. Had we known we had 53 students a few months ago, we may have made a personnel action. But what you try to avoid, once the school year has started, you try to avoid splitting them up, and now that would impact three sections of students with a change in teacher. And so instead we're going to try to give them some academic support in those two classes, the 26 and 27. The school committee guidelines try to stay close to 25, so we're just a little bit over the range of 22 to 25, but clearly we hope to provide some support. But the vast majority of our classes are well balanced and within the range that the school committee has set for all those grade levels. The other thing I'd like to point out in Chart B is that clearly when we talk about a night school and our increasing enrollments, I think if you look at Chart B, you can see that the trend from last year to this year, the same cohort of students in most grade levels has increased. For example, if you look at grade 2, we had 687 students last year. This year we have 703 students. That's an increase of 16 students, or roughly 3% increase in students. And looking at all of our K-8 students, there is an increase of 112 students, or roughly a 2% increase over last year. So there definitely is a steady trend in most grade levels. At the high school, we had 1890 as a total population, 9 through 12, October 1st, 2014. This year it's 1950, so it's an increase of 60 students, which is about a 3% increase in student enrollment over last year. Overall, our enrollment is up 172 students, which is close to almost a 2.5% increase over last year. So clearly the trend continues. You can notice that the bubble is pretty much hit about grade 4. If you look at the K4 enrollment, we're in the 600 to 700 pupil range in those grades. If you look at grades 5 through 12, we're, except for one exception, grade 6, we're in the 400 to 500 range. So each year, that enrollment, grade 6 is just an exception. If you look at all the grades except grade 6, when the 400s, the 500s, and all those grades, it's total enrollment system-wide, whereas in K4, we're at 600, in some cases pushing 700 in those grades. So the bubble is in the lower grades. It's moving steadily forward, and we feel it's going to have an impact on the middle school enrollment and the high school enrollment in the next few years. All the more reason for us to continue to look at the ninth school and high school expansion projects in the future. Any comments about the enrollment charts?
It's not a comment. My eyes are fuzzy, and I was just having some trouble with some of the numbers. The increases and decreases didn't seem to correspond, and I was looking at the year-to-year survival rate. I didn't understand what I was looking at. So I think that your overall point is clear, and the enrollment numbers on the chart are what's most compelling. We don't need to spend time.
Which part isn't clear?
Walking me
or you
through.
don't? Okay. Okay.
It's just you read the increase-decrease line is you just read straight across.
Right.
Fourth grade year over year has gone up by 69. And then the diagonals are talking about an individual cohort, and that cohort when it moved from third to fourth grade.
Right. And that's the survival rate?
It is. Yeah, from grade 2 to grade
Cohort
3 is the
change.
survival rate.
Okay, thank you.
So how's this? Even though we
It's
have
fine. We didn't need to spend
no,
time.
no,
on
I think
this.
it's just, I think it's a really simple message, which is that we have 633 kindergartners, which is 17 fewer than expected, but our overall growth is up 172 students, K through 12.
Okay, through 12, right?
It's like a one sentence.
As I said, the overall, I
You're good.
got.
You're good.
But also to Dr. Connolly's point, comparing K to 4 and 5 to 12, we've got 8 more years of what looks like year-over-year growth.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Dr. Connolly, I have a quick question on Chart A, in particular, Runkle 8th grade,
Yes.
and that's because my son is actually in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a typo? There's the 26, 19, and 20. That seems like a fairly large, delta between the low and high, much more so than, if you will, the rest of the grades. I was wondering if that's a typo or something.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into it.
Okay.
Helen?
One thing that I've found over the years, that the 7th and 8th grade numbers you can't really look at like this because the kids are moving around from class to class. It may be just the homeroom that has that number, but the actual classes aren't that high. That's been in the past. Whether that's the case here or not, I don't know.
The out-of-district enrollment this year is 56. Do we have any idea how that compares to last year?
Last year we had 59. So it's
61. Dr. Schmucker was saying 61.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
They're helpful.
And just one final report. On 24 Webster's Place, which we're calling the Brookline Public Schools Office Annex. During the past 3 months, we've been in the planning stages to transfer staff from 10 departments to an office annex to be located at 24 Webster Place. A total of 42 staff will be transferred from the high school, from the 4th and 5th floors of Town Hall, and the Spurbus Education Center. Vacated office space will be reclaimed for classroom use at the high school. Vacated office space at Town Hall and SEC will be utilized to provide needed office space for administrative positions being added to our administrative structure, as well as to provide us with the opportunity to better utilize existing office space in both of those sites. It is anticipated the actual move to 24 Webster Place will occur the week of November 16th. At this time, we're doing some build-out over there, and some cleaning, and we're having the IT hooked up. But that building should be ready to go by the middle of November. We have received an adequate number of parking permits, as well as parking spaces on site to service that population of staff of 42 people at that building. I've given you a layout. It's here somewhere. Here it is. This is the actual office floor plan, and you can see that the 10 departments are listed on the left-hand side, and you can, by the letters you can see what those departments are. For example, the Parent Center, which is now on the 5th floor here at Town Hall, will be in the lower right-hand corner of the building, and the 4 Parent Center staff will utilize those 2 spaces as mentioned. Where you see the letter A is where the 4 staff are projected to be. The Early Childhood Center will take up the right-hand side of the building. We have the adult education on the left-hand side, and we have other specialty offices, the data team, ELL, adult education, food service, the transportation, facilities and operations will all be in this building. I think it's going to actually work out very well. It was a challenge. The office modules and the office spaces that were available, really I think are going to make this a very workable, a very appropriate office annex site, which will benefit these other buildings that are overcrowded and not being used to the full potential.
I was just curious how many current offices around the district are being free, from how many different places are people coming to go into this building?
Well, for example, it's the high school. They're coming from the high school, they're coming from the Spurbus Center, and they're coming from the 4th and 5th floor of this building. So the 2 largest programs is a BEEP program at the high school. It has about 11 or 12 staff coming over. And the adult education, which has a staff of about 9. They're right now using some very desperately needed classroom space. So when they move out, their spaces, office spaces, will be able to be reclaimed as classrooms, which is a huge need for the high school.
And that are all presumably already claimed for use this year. No. So they've just been, no?
Yeah.
Oh, it's all for next year.
It's going to be a slow phase in.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
I actually have a comment question, but it goes back to the enrollment number, so I don't want to take us off the building if other people had building questions.
Well, actually,
Ms. Cholupsky on buildings? And
yeah, on buildings. So one question, there are 2 BEEP early childhood programs at the high school still, correct? Am I correct?
The classrooms will stay.
The classrooms are going to stay in the spaces that they're in? Okay.
These are the office spaces.
Right, okay. Thank you. For next, so for this year and next year, is that the plan, or?
We had planned to do it in a 2-phase move-in during the school year.
Through the course of all the moving of the departments, EDCO is actually, I believe EDCO is moving out of 2 classrooms next fall. So the 2 early childhood classrooms are going to stay. Currently, BEEP Community Education occupy 3 classrooms. For office space, adult education, community education, they actually occupy actual classrooms as office space. So those are 3. And then the other move at the high school that's still under some discussion is about where whether the print shop or the copy center stays where it is, or whether that gets moved to a different location in the high school to reclaim that room as a classroom. So that will be discussed later. December, January timeframe with the high school staff as we look at next year.
There's
so far
expensive classrooms. Well, they're expensive classrooms to be constructed elsewhere, or we won't even have them.
So we're not having the preschool discussion now, but
no,
the amount of information that you tried to keep in your head, Ms. Dunn, is totally amazing. So thank you. Lisa, do you want to? Dr. Jackson?
So I just want to go back because it took me a second, and then I had a question. That's okay. Coming out of Ms. Charlevsky's statement about the 5th through 8th grade numbers or middle school numbers where students start to transition, I do think it's, while we tend to worry more about low class size for the younger grades, I think given our challenges in middle school as a district, it would be important for us to actually have average class sizes. So if this isn't that, it would be helpful to have as opposed to a homeroom, which actually is a relatively insignificant part of the student's day during those grades. And it doesn't tell us a lot about what's happening in actual instruction. So a clarification as to what these numbers represent would be helpful, but better yet, it would be helpful if we actually had average class size across middle schools.
We can get you that information.
So just on the space, can we just say a tremendous thank you to all of the staff who not only were participants in making this Jenga puzzle happen, but really the people who are moving and express our sincere appreciation. It's always disruptive to move an office. And so we're just grateful that this is working, and we're grateful to all them for their flexibility. So please, please extend our thanks to them. Anything else for Dr. Connolly? Well, we've kept you busy enough in your first couple weeks. Ms. Martin, we have a proposed school committee vote on the overview and acceptance of grant awards. Thank you, Ms. Sheehy, for staying with us. We appreciate your stamina for being here tonight. Thank you.
Better? Okay. So first I also want to, we work in collaboration with the Department of Administration and Finance, and I want to thank Mike D'Onofrio for his collaboration and help. And we had a long-term secretary, Susan Fields, who retired in June, who worked in our office for many years, and I want to thank her for her service. And now we have a new since August, Michelle McComiskey has joined us, and she's going to be absolutely amazing. So we're very pleased to welcome her, and I thank all of them for their help in preparing and executing and everything that related to the grant. So as I said, we have $5.5 million. I gave you, you had it in your packet. I have a slight update on some of it. All of the grants that we have submitted have been approved as of this morning, with a few exceptions. Two of them have a very late fall due date. That's a special education program, best practices in transition, and we're working on developing that to submit. But it is an entitlement, sort of, so that if we apply it and do meet the criteria, we'll get funded. And our early education, special education program improvement grant as well is a late fall deadline. So we will be applying for both of those and are pretty much guaranteed that they will be approved. Early education, special education grant from EEC. I talked to them today, and they are very backlogged. They assured me we'd have a 9/1 start date, but they haven't been able to get us the paperwork for approval so far. So those that's the status of all the grants, with the exception of our Title IIA Educator Quality Grant, which is on hold at the Department of Education. And Jennifer will just...
Yeah, just very briefly. Those funds are on hold until we provide the department with a plan to collect student impact ratings. And you may remember that those student impact ratings were formerly related to district-determined measures. And the department has since given great latitude and provide a number of different options for the collection of student impact ratings. And I met for the first time with President of the BEU, Jessica Wender-Schubo, 2 Fridays ago. And I'm happy to say there are a lot of areas of agreement here. And I think that there are some opportunities that we'll be presenting to you later.
And so that grant has been submitted. It's just on hold. They're waiting for this documentation from us before they can approve. So that's sort of there. Every year we have other grant opportunities that might come up, and we apply for them as they arise during the course of the year. They're usually smaller grants. They're competitive grants often. And if they're appropriate for Brookline, we will apply. So it's pretty much a slight increase from last year. In the NCLB grants, one notable exception is that we were not eligible for funding for the Title III, what's called immigrant subgrant. That's based on the demographic data on immigrant population that we submit in our SIMS report, and we're going to be looking at that to see if we to make sure that that's accurate for next year, our reporting on that. You have a question?
Based on? I mean, how many, what?
It's a formula grant by the state based on the percentage of students who we report as having immigrant being here less than 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And for the couple years, we never got it. Then for the last 2 years, we did get it. And then this year, we were surprised not to get it. And we inquired about it, and they said based on our numbers that we reported, we were not eligible. Again, we're going to investigate and make sure that we accurately report next year. And then we'll see for sure whether we're eligible or not moving forward.
Thank you.
Last, in terms of our METCO funding, which was cut, had a up and down, funding was reinstated, and it's the largest amount we've had so far, so that in recent history, so that is good news. Kindergarten grant was cut and then brought back at a smaller funding level than we have had for many years, but still significant funding. And a few other grants had slight reductions, and a few grants had increases, so it kind of evens out. One other thing in our, we had this for a number of years, Quality Rating and Improvement System. It was an EEC grant that was part of Race to the Top, and that funding has, we've seen the last of that funding and the last of the grant, but we got probably about $50,000 to $70,000 worth of materials and supplies through that grant for our early childhood program. So it was great that we applied for it and got it, and it was a lot of work on the part of our early education staff to qualify and get the funding for that. We also are very grateful for the funding we get from the 21st Century Fund, which funds a number of initiatives, the Mindfulness Initiative this year, an Innovation Fellow, Senior Year Alternative, Content Reading Initiative, and Drawing for Understanding in the Field, a science art course. So that funding continues, and you can see the amount on the spreadsheet it gave us. And the BEF continues to support our professional development, professional learning in many, many ways. And Executive Director Kathleen is here, so I want to give a personal thank you for all her support. We have system grants. This year we have 15 teacher grants, 10 collaborative grants. Last year there were 13 Idea Lab grants. We're anticipating about that number this year. The call for proposals just went out. They also provide other support in BEEP Opportunity Fund and Tide Pool visits and an author visit, and the Margaret Metzger Fellowship, which maybe some of you attended the first celebration this past September. Which was really, really wonderful. We have, for many, many, many years, 25 years, received funding from Boston University because we're a member of the Boston University Consortium from the School of Education. We called those TADF grants, and we turned our allocation of $8,000 into a small grant fund that teachers could apply for. This past year, the School of Education went through a program review, including the consortium, and they are restructuring it. The grants program will also be restructured, and this year will be a transition year as they develop the new process. Probably our RFPs will be available in the spring for teachers and districts to apply for full year funding for next year. So this year will be a gap in funding for that. And instead of an allocation, I think it will be more of a competitive process. But we're pretty well equipped to apply for the types of things that those grants will support. I think that about sums it up, but if people have questions, I'm happy to answer them, and then you typically vote to accept the funds.
So why don't I move to accept the funds? If there's a second. Mr. Chang, we will have to do this by roll call vote. Don't let me forget because Beth's on the phone. But discussion, any questions? Ms. Stone?
So I suspect that Mr. Orlowski may jump in to answer this question, but but I was thinking about the kindergarten grant, which was established years ago. God knows when my daughter was
2000 or something.
In kindergarten, so a long time ago, to support districts being able to offer full-day kindergarten, and I know that it has, having helped most districts at this point do that. I know that we still count on it, but that it has been decreased year by year by the legislature, and I'm just curious. On the one hand, it's sort of a good object lesson for anybody in the public who pays attention to the minutia of the pressures on our budget, that small things like this that we build in, especially as you have growing enrollments in kindergarten, how much harder it is for the budget to absorb that as those get cut back. But it also occurs to me that it's been now 14 or 15 years, and that at some point I assume the legislature is going to make a decision to stop calling it the kindergarten grant and make it is there any conversation about making it a part of Chapter 70 or part of the...
I think it's a conversation just to take it away, is what it was this
Simply
year.
to take it
This
away
year.
as opposed to building into...
This year, the Senate budget, I think, eliminated it. Maybe the House, too.
Right, no, I know, and there were a couple of districts that haven't even been able to move in that direction. Can you let us know what the number is on the kindergarten grant? What do we get now?
It's right here.
Let's see.
I'm sorry, I just didn't have it in front of me.
I just saw it.
232,390. The kindergarten, so there's two kindergarten grants. One is for quality full-day kindergarten for programs that have been in existence for a while, and then there is a transition to full-day kindergarten grant. They both were reinstated at significantly smaller or reduced amounts. our grant is used for aides, paraprofessionals. We have a full-time aide in every kindergarten class, and that was one of the stipulations of the grant when it was designed. And it now no longer pays for all half-time aides, but it pays for a significant portion of half-time aides. The grant was for half-time aides in every kindergarten class. So we continue to be able to do that, but with this year's allocation. But when it was cut, we kept our aide positions, but as you said, it becomes a big grant contingency.
If memory serves me right, I think it originally was like $23,000 per classroom, and they did it by classroom.
But for years, we haven't, as our number of kindergartens have gone up, it has been kind of level funded at prior years, a number of years back.
I mean, the one
it hasn't kept up with our growth in kindergarten size at all.
The one thing that I think, and I'm not sure who decides these things, but every representative has a school that's in this area. So there should be the impetus behind it politically to continue it. But it's not clear. I know that Baker certainly wanted to get rid of it, and I think it was the Senate, and I think the House was the one that tried to keep it, and eventually it came back into the budget.
I have a question about the TADF grants. Most universities who send student teachers to us give vouchers for their courses to the teachers, and then we can put them in a pool if the teachers aren't using them. So the system gets some payback. BU has never done that.
No, we do. We get about.
Oh, they are
this
doing
is
that.
The BU consortium. The grant fund was in addition to the vouchers.
Was in addition to the vouchers, because I seem to remember that.
There was confusion around that, but they do get.
So they do give vouchers,
and
so the fact.
And as a member of the consortium, we also get 2 scholarship vouchers that we offer to teachers to apply for.
That's good. So
that will continue this year, even as the grant program.
It's just the TADF funds.
It's just the grant funding.
So I have sort of 2 questions. The first being the Enhanced School Health Services. That's a grant. That's a competitive grant, or is that an entitlement grant, or is that?
It was a competitive grant. I think we're in about the 6th year of that grant.
That's sort of what I was remembering.
And we're eligible for, this is, I think, 2nd year of a renewal, and we're eligible for 1 more cycle of renewal for that grant. It provides support for mandated services, like health, different types of screenings and stuff. We also, we received the grant, but then a number of, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 other school districts, one is Dedham right now, the other is Brook Charter School, are attached to our grant, and they get a portion of that allocation. And we manage the funds for that. They didn't have the prerequisites to receive the grant. In order to do it, you have to have what we have as a nursing coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of districts don't. And in the early years of this grant, the grant helped fund that position, but the requirement was that the district would continue to take on point two until they were fully funding that position, which we do. And then as long as you continue to do that, you're eligible to keep the funds as long as the grant program, which has, as I said, 3 more years essentially until they decide what they're going to do with that program again.
So that was the second part of my question. Are there any other grants here that you see that in the next few years, and maybe you don't need to answer it now, but at some point we should know, are there grants that are going to go away, that we should be thinking about?
Well, the early education and care grants are now we're coordinated family and community engagement and inclusive preschools used to be more on an entitlement basis, and they've now switched to a competitive process. Vicki and her team are very good at having everything in place to be very competitive in those grants. So last year, both of them were quasi-competitive, so a little bit of grandfathering in, and we received them. And now we're in the second year for both of those, and next year we will reapply in a competitive sense. But depending on what the rules are in the new proposal, I'm sure we'll work day and night to be able to be eligible and apply for them. But the funding also is different. In fact, the inclusive preschools was supposed to be a competitive process this year, actually. We applied, and our allocation was $48,000, $43,000. Not enough districts applied or could figure it out it was such a complicated process that they just said, forget it. If you had it last year, we will roll it over to you we still had to reapply and do everything, but we ended up with a bonus of almost $100,000 because their process just was too cumbersome for most districts.
I think public schools still haven't, except for Brookline has done an incredible job of figuring out the new Department of Early Education and Care and how to access the grants. And it's really kudos to Vicki and Barbara Magid, who really sort of scour their grants and make sure that we access whatever we can for our kids. And a lot of public schools just give up on it.
They're
because
very
it's just too complicated.
Complicated and cumbersome grants, right? So we benefited from that this year because we actually have contacts at EEC and attend all the meetings and figure out how to apply. So thank you to that team for sure. Oh, okay. So maybe not. I mean, there's an option. So the Title I funding, how we determine which schools receive Title I funding has been always on free and reduced lunch statistics. And now the state is moving to a different measure for called economically disadvantaged. This year in the grant, they had like a menu of options for the districts to determine how they were going to figure out which schools based on either using that economically disadvantaged or free and reduced lunch. That will probably be grandfathered out over the next year or so to using economically disadvantaged, and we'll see how that plays out into which schools are eligible for Title I funding. We actually used it this year because it allowed us to carry over the schools that we've traditionally used and we're planning on in our budget process as being eligible for Title I funding. But we'll have to wait and see. There's a Title I meeting in about two weeks at the state that I'm going to go to and see what I can learn about that and how it will help us in our budget planning process.
Amy, thank you as always. It's always such a tremendous thing to pull all these pieces together, and it's always great to come here with good news.
A lot of people who work on these, so I'm just standing here representing many.
No, absolutely, and it's such a huge amount of work, so thank you. If there aren't any more questions, we can maybe move to a vote. Ms. Coyne, can you poll the committee?
Dr. Jackson? Ms. Feld? Yes. Mr. Glover?
Yes.
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 Mr. Chang?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yeah. Okay. Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more agenda item, which is a report on our workshop, which if anyone really wants to hear it, I am happy to give. But since we were all here, I'm getting sort of the no sign from audience members. So we're going to skip that agenda item and give you back 10 minutes. And unless there is any new business, we will adjourn.
Yes, you're right.